religion was given to us in one moment from God with all the details. And he says, and how did it happen? That's what we call Ma'amad Har Sinai. God came to the Jewish people on Mount Sinai, revealed himself, and gave us the whole religion on a gold platter with all the details, how to do everything, what he wants. He spoke to us. So now the king asks a question. I'm just giving you what we spoke about last week. Okay, so you're saying that God is basically a person, or God is physical being. We're learning 92. So you're saying that God is basically a materialistic being. Comes along the rabbi and says, definitely not. Not only is it prohibited, not allowed to make God into a physical being, the second commandment that God spoke to us was don't make a statue or a physical being a way to serve God. So because your question is a good question, so therefore I want you to know that God made sure that the second thing he told us right away was do not place God into a physical entity. So comes along the king, the Kuzari, now asks a very difficult question. 92, read inside. Amar Kuzari. Hizaher achaver shelo tite besipur shivchei amecha. What are you talking about? That the Jewish people are so great and that they don't turn God into a physical thing. And here you are. I see you're excited about your nation. Wow, you're saying how amazing they are. How special they are, how great they are. But did you forget what's famous, what's written in the Torah? Shenitparsem mi Miriam, the rebellion im ele hamamadot. What happened? Kishamati, because I heard. Shebetoch ze, during the actual event of the receiving of the Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu went up for 40 days and he went to bring it back. On the 40th day, so this is during the process of the receiving of the Torah. What happened? Shebetoch ze, while this is happening, Asu egel ve'avaduhu mibilti ha'elohim. They created an idol, a calf, a golden calf, and they were serving the golden calf, which is not God. So I see you're so excited about your nation, but in those moments, they did the most worst, terrible sin. So you still say that your nation is so great? What about that, huh? Amar Chaver, the rabbi answers, Chet, now we're in 93. Chet shehigdiluhu alehem ligdulatam vegadol mi shechataav sfurim. So do not judge a person based on a side act that someone does. There's nobody perfect. Everyone, a little mistake. The rabbi says, come on. A little mistake, don't judge them based on that. Everybody makes a mistake. A person is judged based on the majority of who they are, right? It says that the world is judged based on the majority. If you have 51% positive, 49% negative, you're considered a positive person. Right? Adam, a person is judged. So obviously we say that they did a mistake, but it's a rare mistake. Right? The Kuzari is shocked. And by the way, there was a convention once that there was a convention once in 1967 in a Muslim university. They had a convention. They all agreed that the Jewish people are evil. Okay, that's obvious. The argument was, this is in the University of right, El Zahir in Kahir. The question was, if they convert to Islam, can they be fixed or not? And the proof that they brought that we're the worst people in the world is that the Torah says they themselves can admit how bad they are. The Torah tells the stories of the sin of the golden calf, right? That's their proof. But it's the opposite. The Torah talks about the things we did wrong, and we did tshuva, and we said we're mistaken, and we did tshuva. That shows the greatness of a person is not someone who never made a mistake, but someone who makes a mistake, takes responsibility, and does tshuva, and admits it. Okay? It brings us to this week's parsha. I know it's off topic, but I want to throw it in. We know that when God asked Adam and Chava, he asked Adam, why did you eat from the tree? What did he do? He said, Chava did it. Chava, why'd you do it? The snake did it. So everyone blames everybody. It's very difficult for a person to say, I made a mistake. Who is the first person to say, I made a mistake? No, the first person, and Yehuda didn't even say 100% he made a mistake. What did he say? Tzadka mimeni. I'm right. You're right also. She's more right than me. Who was the first person to say fully, I made a mistake? Chatati.
Cain?
No, Cain said, I don't know where he is. Well, my brother's keeper. Shomer achi anochi. Like, who was the person that said, I made a mistake with no buts, ifs, ands?
Reuben?
Nope. Come on, guys, keep going. Who was the first person that said, Chatati? And he would have had a million ways to say, but this, but that. For what he did wrong, he could have given a million.
David the Melech.
David HaMelech, the first person to say.
Yeah, I remember.
Was David HaMelech. Yehuda said, Tzadka mimeni, I'm right, she's right, he's more right. This is the highest level to be able to say. We don't believe in Judaism like in Christianity. They have saints. For us, the people that never sinned, Yishai, there are some people, but we don't know anything about them. So they didn't do anything bad, but I don't know what kind of great things they did. But to say I made a mistake, so that's what he says. Okay, they made a little mistake, but it doesn't cloud their whole personality. You know what I'm saying? It's a little mistake. So the king says, now we're 94. Amar Kuzari. Veze minatotcha ve'ezrecha le'amecha. So I guess you are so in love with your nation that you're not even able to see what they did wrong. Right? You're bribed. You can't even talk to you. I tell you that they did the sin of the golden calf, and what do you say? They made a little mistake. No big deal. You can't judge everybody, on every detail. They made a little mistake. They did the sin of the golden calf. What? You must be so in love with your nation that you're bribed and you can't see the mistakes. And you're saying it like it's a little mistake? Like, what's the big deal? They made a little mistake. Ve'eze avon gadol mizeh. Ve'ezo ma'ala tisher achar zeh. What are you talking about? It's like, imagine I'm talking to somebody. I'm right. It's like a joke. I'm asking somebody. I wanna set my daughter up with this guy. Is he a good guy? Great guy. Does he learn Torah? He learns Torah. Does he keep Shah? He keeps everything on and on and on and on. Is he a person of truth? No, not at all. Is he a liar? Yes. So now everything you know about him is goes out the drain. To say about the sin of the golden calf, what do the rabbis say? It says it was like the receiving of the Torah was like the wedding of Hashem and the Jewish people. And it says that during the wedding, They were looking for the bride. The groom is standing under the chuppah, and where is the grime? The bride in the back room with the best friend of the of the um, of the groom. That's what it says. Aluva kala mezana betoch chupata. During the wedding, they were bowing down. Ela Elohecha Israel, bowing down to this idol, to this statue, to this golden calf. And you're here receiving the Torah. That you're saying is like, whatever, they like it was a little mistake. Don't pay attention to something like that. So the rabbi says, okay, I guess Amar Chaver 95. Harpeli me'at. Okay, give me a break, give me a chance. Obviously, I have to explain myself a little better. Ad sheva'er etzlecha gdulat ha'am. Let me explain to you, first of all, the greatness of this nation. So there's two answers to the question you're asking me about the golden calf. One answer is we can go into the details of what they did and how wrong it was. We'll get there. But before we get there, before we even go discussing the question of the sin of the golden calf, which is, by the way, Rabbi Tzvi Yehuda, he has a revolutionary way of teaching the Parsha. He came up with this idea, and the whole entire Torah, he explains by how the whole Torah is couples. The whole Parshas, so Bereshit, Noach are together, Klal and Prat. You have like the big concept, the big idea, and then the details. So Avram Avinu and he goes through the whole Parsha explaining each Parsha how it's Klal and Prat. You have Avram Avinu, and then you have Lech Lecha is who is Avram Avinu in general, and then you have Vayera, who is Avram Avinu in detail, in the details. And he goes through each Parsha explaining how it's all couples through the whole Torah. There's only one Parsha. It doesn't have a couple. Which Parsha is that? Kitisa. In the sin of the golden calf. So it's like a slip. It's like something that's not part of the big picture. It's a standalone mistake that doesn't, it's semina klal, as we say, something that is out of the ordinary. There's something that doesn't really fit. But let's understand it. But before we get to understanding the sin of the golden calf, we first need to understand. You have to understand. I'm going to explain to you the greatness of this nation. Do you understand? You have to understand before we go into the details of the sin. Let me explain to you first of all. It's like, for example, you have a guy who's a musician, and you have a guy who's musical. A musician is someone who is musical and developed his talent and skill to become a musician. But if he wasn't musical, he could not ever have become a musician. So we're going to explain now, before we go into the details of the sin, we're going to explain what does it mean that there's something called a Sgula Israelit. Okay? And therefore, like the same way someone who's musical, he has that gift. There's something called the Sgula. The Sgula, we said, the inherent value, the fifth level of creation. If you remember, we talked about that there's stones, there's inanimate objects, and then there's plants, the world of plants, and then there's the world of animals. And each one is a new level of creation. And then you have human beings. But then you have the fifth level of creation is the Sgula. And we're going to explain what that means. It's a new level of creation, which is the Sgula, and this is the essence of this whole book. Okay? So, basically, we have to understand something. Before we go into understanding the sin of the golden calf, we have to understand something. Sins that we do not affect the Sgula that we have in us. Right? And this is very important to understand, because remember, the Christianity, they said God kicked you out. You didn't go in God's way, you sinned. He kicked you out of Israel, and you're no longer his nation, and he chose us. But what we are saying is, the Sgula that we have, this call it the torch that we hold, the soul that we have, the Jewish soul, is not dependent on our actions. Of course, it's like a diamond. Take the diamond, put it in the mud, and it can become this filled with mud. Did that mud retract from the diamond itself? It's this packed with mud. All you have to do is clean it off, and that's it. The diamond is still there. And that's what we're talking about. This there's something called the sgula that cannot be harmed. It cannot be changed. We're called banim atem Hashem Elokechem. A child, if he's evil or if he's righteous, he's always the child for his parent. It's not like the relationship of a husband and a wife where they make a choice to get married and they can get divorced. A child is always the child of his father, of his mother. Okay? And therefore, so the rabbi says to the king, you are looking at us, at the Jewish people, in criteria of, okay, if they keep the mitzvahs, they're Jewish. They don't keep the mitzvahs, they're not. Like any other religion, you want to be whatever religion is, you do these actions, you're part of the religion. You don't do it, you're out. It's a mistake. There's the sgula that we're talking about that cannot be changed forever. Yisrael shechata, afapi shechata Yisraelu. Even if you sinned, you're still a Jew. Right? And this is the way it is. And it's absolute. Like a human stays a human. Okay? So, the daili le'ed. So let me explain to you about the Jewish nation. How do I know that there's Jewish nation? Before we go into the details, I have no problem talking to you about the actual details. But before we go there, first let me explain to you the Jewish people. I have proof that the Jewish people are eternal, are loved, are precious, cannot be changed from the fact Hashem becharam le'am. God chose them as His nation. When we say that God chose them, it's not like I have two things. I can choose an apple or an orange, and I chose the orange. It wasn't that God said, "Okay, I need a nation. Okay, I'll take the Jewish nation. No, I need that. They didn't do the job. I need a different nation." No, God created a nation, and they're the only ones that could do the job because they're the only creation that was created to do this job. There's no other option. So if God chose them for a nation, daili le'ed, I have proof that God chose them. Le'am miben ha'umot, from all nations, v'chul alehem anyan, and He placed the godly idea on them, on the masses. That shigiu kulam emat dibur. Everybody heard God speak to them. Every one of them are prophets. Ve'avar ha'inyan el nashehem v'ayu mibnehem bnei neviim, and it passed on to their children and their wives, and they were prophets. Acher shelo haya chal inyan Elohi ki im beyechidim mibnei Adam achar Adam harishon. We explained this in the past. The revolution of the Jewish nation was that it was in the godly idea, what we call the sgula, the fifth creation element of creation, the fifth element, which is the Jewish nation. At first, it was in individuals. You had these very incredible individuals with Adam Arishon, and it went through individuals until it came to Avram, and then it kept going in individuals too. We're going to go through each detail, but from Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and from Yaakov, that was it. Now there's something called a nation, and anyone in this nation is part of that sgula. And that was the revolution that took place when Yaakov became Israel. Yaakov became the nation. He built the nation, and now it's something new. And this is a fact. So you think I don't know? You think that God didn't know that they were going to sin? You think God is not aware of this? God knows everything. You think God didn't know they would fall to 49 levels of impurity in Egypt? Of course He knows that. So what are you asking questions? God chose them. The fact God chose them from all nations It means that this is a holy nation. And even if they make a mistake, and no matter how great the mistake is, they are still within the fold. Okay? This cannot be changed. Let's keep going. Ki Adam. Now let me explain to you again how the development took place with the Segula, who they are. You don't understand who the Jewish nation is. Ki Adam ushalem. Let me explain to you, okay? Let me explain to you. Ki Adam haya shalem mibilti tnai. Adam Arishon was a perfect creation. Ki en ta'ana b'shlemut ha'maseh מעושה חכם יכול, מחומר בחרו לצורה אשר חפץ בה, ולא מונע ממזג שכבת אב. He didn't come from זרע האב ולא מדם האם. Adam Arishon did not come from what we understand of, he had a mother and a father and they had their seed and in the womb. No, Adam Arishon, ולא מהמזונות הנהגה בפני ינקות. He wasn't a child who developed and grew up. He was created perfect at the age of 20 years old. His personality, he was created perfect. He was created at the age of 20 years old. And his intellect was at its highest peak of the highest perfection, highest level of understanding. Obviously, you don't understand what this Jewish nation is. The Jewish nation is the continuation of Adam Arishon, the perfect creation that was created. He knew everything without learning. He was the child of God. So Adam Arishon was not a child who was born from mother and father, because when you're born from mother and father, your mother and father, their parents are not perfect, and you inherit the negative and the positive. And when you're a child, you're focused just on the materialism, and you have to go through all kinds of stages of learning and maturing, and all going through all kinds of negative things until you become, a perfect person. But Adam, right? Like it says that there's three partners into a human being: mother and father and God. Adam Arishon, there was only one partner: God. Created from the creator of the world himself. Adam Arishon is the peak, the height of creation. There's something called, there's 8 levels of creation. There's emotion, there's imagination, there's Secha, there's Ruach HaKodesh, there's Nevuat Moshe Rabbeinu, and there's Nevuat Adam Arishon, and Nevuat after Tchiat HaMetim. Adam Arishon is on the highest level, more than Moshe Rabbeinu. This is a person, his body was refined, every part of him, right? When God spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu, he told him, you have to separate from your wife. Because no matter how you try to look at it, when you're with your wife on a physical level, there's some kind of personality, some personal, personal level where you become very, materialistic. Certain level of materialism. And Moshe Rabbeinu had to detach from that. But Adam Arishon didn't have to. Adam Arishon was like on a higher level. So first let's understand what this means, right? It says that the Adam Arishon, they didn't have clothing and they weren't embarrassed. It was like, there was no issue of, we're talking about the most refined, holiest, highest level of creation. Okay? So, on the intellectual level, physical level, every level, spiritual level, Adam Arishon was perfect. Okay? The only lack that Adam Arishon had was he had the ability to do something, to make a mistake, to sin. He never sinned, and he did nothing wrong ever, but he had the potential of doing something wrong. It's sort of like if somebody knocks on the door here and asks you if you'd like some heroin. You say, no, thank you. And you close the door and you call the police. Was that a difficult experience for you? Did you say, oh, I wanted it, oh, I wish I could have had it? No. But what happens after you taste it? And then there's a knock on the door and the person was addicted. Then the struggle is very difficult. So Adam HaRishon had the ability. The knock on the door was it could come and he could have said no, but he fell. But still, it was the perfect creation. Now we're just giving you a little bit of the history of the Jewish people. So that's where it started. The history of the Jewish people began from Adam HaRishon. והוליד בנים רבים, ולא היה מהם ראוי להיות במקומם אדם אלא הבל. And Adam had lots of children, but there was only one who continued the heritage. Only one who continued holding the torch of being this godly person. Who was that? Hevel. And when Cain killed him, then there was a new son that came, whose name was Shet, and he was given that torch, or that segula, that unique specialness. And he was similar to Adam. And that person, Shet, was the segula, and was the heart, right? And all the other people were like the peel. Were like the, not the important, not the essence. Okay? Sgulat Shet, Enosh. And then who was the one who continued Shet? Was Enosh. And then Noach. And as these individuals, they were similar to Adam, the first perfect creation. And they were called B'nai Elohim. Shlemim bebriyatam ubemidatam ubarichut hamim. And not only that, who were the only people who lived long lives, almost 1,000 years, were only these people that had the godly spark, the godly segula, the godly mission or godly presence upon them. These were the people that lived long lives. Ubechokmot, ubeyicholet, and they had wisdom and they had abilities. Ubemehem anu monim Adamvad Noach, and we count the days from Adam till Noach, Noach ad Abraham. So here is the history, the stream, the flow, the we call it energy, or the godly, godliness in the world flows through, and this through these individuals until it was time to come out, right? And this is the way it works. Sometimes you even skip the generation. And so you want to understand, if you want to understand the faith, you want to understand connection with God, you will not get it without understanding the history of the Jewish people. You have to understand this, the part of humanity that has this relationship with God, that's the highest level of creation. This is it. God gives life to everything, and God reveals himself through who he chooses. So you want to learn faith, then learn the history of the Jewish people. Okay? It says that Adam, before Heva was born, for 130 years, he gave birth to demons and spirits. Adam HaRishon. Before Hevel came in, the Rambam explains, what does that mean, demons and spirits? It means evil, wicked people. So from Avram, the perfect person, came out a lot of waste, a lot of not positive. And the first person, and we see Cain also was a very powerful person, but he took it in the wrong way. He was a corrupt person. God says to him, if you want to be better, you got to do it, right? Bilam, all these people had great powers, but they couldn't do it. Jesus, also an evil person. They used their talents for bad. Jesus was a genius person and was charismatic and was smart, right? But what did he use it for? Evil. Question is, what do you do with your talents? And that's what happened. Cain wanted to get close to God without doing the work. And Shet was the continuation of Hevel. And Moshe Rabbeinu was right? He was the type of Hevel. Moshe Rabbeinu is the acronym for Moshe, Shet, Hevel. Right? So Shet was the continuation of Adam, and Cain was the garbage and got pushed away. And this is what happened. And it's interesting, the Rambam says that why that having a long life was only to the people that had this godliness upon them. And Adam Arishon, right? The people that only had a long life was Adam, Noach, and between Noach and Avram, they met each other. Noach and Avram actually met each other. Because they were these holy people, therefore death was not able to get them, and they lived long lives. When you nurse from the tree of life, you become more alive. Very interesting. ואפשר שהיה מהם מי שלא דבק בעניין אלוהי כתרח, אבל אברהם בנו היה תלמיד לאבי אביו ever. And it could skip the generation. It's true, Terach, Adam's father, was an evil person, but Avraham Avinu connected back to his grandfather. And it's very interesting, right? Sometimes you meet a child, he's like his grandfather. Terach had the segula, but it was dormant. It was sleeping. It didn't come out. Okay, let's keep going. ועוד, משישיג נוח בעצמו, והעניין האלוהי דבק בהם מאבות אבותם אל בני בנים, ואברהם סגולת עבר, ותלמידו על כן עברי. Avram Avinu met Noach, right? Because he lived 950 years. Lived Noach, because he was the segula from Ever, his student, and Avram Avinu was called Ivri. The Ever has Gulat Shem, and Ever comes from Shem. The Shem has Gulat Noach, mipnei shu yoresh aklim yeshevim Hashem mitzrim b'charvotam eretz Canaan admat nevuah. And land of Israel is called the land of prophecy because it's the place that is it's not extreme. The weather's not extreme, and in order to be given prophecy, you need a place that's not extreme. Person has to be balanced and healthy and right on every level. And Yefet went to the north, and Cham went to the south of the world. The Skulat Avraham Mikol Banav, Yitzchak, and Yitzchak was the Skula. He had the torch from his father, and he sent all of his children away. Yitzchak was Skulat Yitzchak Yaakov, and Yitcha Esav was out, and Yaakov was in, and then Bnei Yaakov Kulam Skulat, and all the children of Yaakov, they're all in. Kulam Roim LeYanahid, they're all inside the godly idea that we talked about. Vaya lehem hamakom hahu miyuchad b'inyan Elohi v'zeh tchilat chol inyan Elohi al kahal. This is now the first time that God reveals Himself on the masses of a community. Asher lo hayad nimtza ki b'yechidim. It was only in individuals, and now that doesn't exist anymore. Okay, so therefore, so it's true. There was big arguments between Yosef and his brothers, but still, it's all within the family. Everyone's in, and so therefore, we're not going to go into the whole idea of Yosef and his brothers. V'yashamrem Elohim v'yafrem v'yirbem v'yigdena v'mitzrayim, and God brought. And where did we become a nation? In Egypt. Right? We see that God is guiding everything. That God, it seems the opposite. And sometimes we don't understand, obviously, everything of God, how He does it. But this is how He did it. Kasher yugdal ha'ilan asher shorshot tov. It's like you have a tree that has a good roots. Ad shiotziu pri shalem domeh lepri harishon. And the fruit that comes out is like the tree. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Yosef, and Echav, and it's like this tree that gave these fruits. And these fruits were like these people. They were the fruit. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and Yosef, and Moshe, and Aaron, and Miriam, and Betzalel, and Oholiav, Kmo Rashi Amatot, Shivim Zkenim, and so on. And Kalev, Bechor, V'zulatam, Az Re'uyim Le'eraot Ha'or Alehem. God's light was able to basically shine on them, or through them. Ve'im ayu b'neihem amrim, ayu nig'alim, ach hem bli safek sgula asher b'tchilotam mitivam. So we said, we are like our fathers. It's called Maseh Avad Simam B'Banim. The qualities of our fathers is in us, and even if we don't see it, it comes out. It's like a seed. We have to try to be like our fathers, but we have to know it's there. And the Rambam says that everyone can be a tzaddik, Moshe Rabbeinu. That's what he says. because the power of Moshe Rabbeinu is in us. And what Moshe reached, if you want it, you can also do it. ונזהרים באב הממרא בעבור מה שיתראה בו סגולה אשר תראה בבנו בבן בנו שתלכת טיפה כמו שאמרנו בתרח זולת מי שנדבק. Okay, so let's just keep going. So, like we said, it's going to be revealed even if we don't see it. It's there, and this is the Jewish people. Understand that the same way we saw in Ever, we didn't see it till Avram Avinu that it came out, but it's hidden. But this is how the godly light comes through from Adam Arishon. Ever was like a Hasidim Otalam. He was the Rosh Yeshiva of Sheb and Ever, but you didn't see it in his children until Avram Avinu arrived. You didn't see it in his children. So it passed through the children, but it was asleep. So sometimes what you see comes out in the son, in the children, comes out from the fathers, right? Like we said, even if your son doesn't come out so successful, so it goes on to the next child, to the grandson. Never give up, never, right? So, and this is basically, so even if the Jewish people sinned, it doesn't take away. So they sin, but it will come back. The greatness will come back. Okay, before we go into the details of the sin of the golden calf, understand what the segula is. That's what we're talking about here. So, there's no question even. Whatever they did, the Jewish people, the sin, it sort of hides their greatness. That you can't see it with your eyes. But it never, from the ends of the depths of who they are, it never went away. Okay? So, basically, Amal Kuzari, wow, okay, this is pretty deep, this is pretty amazing. So now we're in 96. Amal Kuzari, Zot be'emeti gdula nimshechet madam. Wow, that's incredible. This explanation, this understanding of like how the segula, the godly experience, the godly presence, the way it has transferred from generation to generation. Wow, this is like mind-blowing. Ve'adam haya gadol bebriot haaretz. God is like Adam was the greatest of all creations. V'nitchayev lachem hagdula al kol hanimtzaim ba'aretz, aval hayeh hagdula zot min hachet hazot. I agree, says the Kuzari. I agree Adam Rishon was incredible. And I agree that it passed on to you. But the fact is, where is it? Right? The fact is you did that sin. So he's still not happy with the answer. You did that sin. You did a sin that's not a small thing. And I understand, okay, it's still with you, but I still don't get it. Where is the greatness of the Jewish people? Where did it disappear to? So obviously we said there was two answers. One answer is the deep answer, and that's the main thing. The fact that we sinned or didn't sin, it doesn't change who we are as a nation. The Segula Yisrael was not harmed by it. And number two, the second answer is, and again, as we go on in generations, we will free ourselves from those negative things. But that's still, now the second answer, you want to talk about the sin of the golden calf? No problem. It's a side subject. But now we're going to go and we're going to talk about it. And we're going to go into it next week. We don't have time today. But we will continue explaining now exactly what was the sin of the golden calf. Next week, now he's going to go into explaining the sin of the golden calf. What did they really do wrong? How bad was it? Once you understand, first of all, Israel shechata af pi shechata Israel. The Jewish people are the Jewish people no matter what, and no external or negative thing they do can take that away. If you got that, you did your job for this class. You did your job from the king. You understood a very important foundation of being a Jew, of what is the Jewish nation about. Internalize, think about this. This is the main thing. After that, we'll talk about the details. Next week, we'll talk about the details, exactly what they did wrong and how bad it was and how they did tshuva maybe. We'll talk about that. First, internalize this concept of what does it mean. Banim atem Hashem akechem. You are the children of God, and you have this segula, and it's a fact, it's a reality, it's a creation that cannot be changed in no way possible. Thank you very much.